So I just copied the stat key data here, and I'm pasting it into my spreadsheet, and it doesn't appear to be in 2 columns. So with the data highlighted, we can tell the computer to split it into 2 columns. So to do that, with the data highlighted, we go to data. And then at the very bottom, we have split text to columns. If you're in Excel, there's a similar option there somewhere. And if I click split, it will look at my data and guess there's a comma. Maybe I should split on the comma. Nice, it did it right. If it didn't guess right automatically, then you can choose whatever symbol separates your numbers or words. Okay, so mine did it right. Anybody have a problem with that? So again, I went to, when it first came in, again, it was separated by commas in 1 column. I just went to data, split, and the computer guessed at what I needed. All right, let's get rid of that. All right, so we got the data in there. And again, important that you have your X's and your Y's correct. Okay, so always the explanatory or independent variable is stated first, and then the next column is the response or dependent variable second. If that's something you're having a hard time remembering, then what I would highly recommend doing is above the actual names, put that information in there to remind you, did I get this right? So I'm just going to insert a couple rows above, and I'm going to put X, explanatory. This is optional. I recommend it if the ideas of independent, dependent, explanatory response are new to you, which they probably are. Okay, so I'm putting those in as reminders. Did I get them right? Yeah, I think the temperature explains why they chirp more. Okay, so that's why I'm naming them that way. Next thing I want to do is, let's see, I'm going to skip over to D here, give myself a little space. I want to calculate the slope. So I'm going to type the word slope first to label what I'm going to calculate. I'm going to calculate the intercept, and I'm going to calculate the correlation coefficient. I'm just going to call that correlation. The calculation for slope is equals slope. And if you start typing SLO, it'll say, hey, I can find the slope of a line from a linear regression data. That's exactly what I want. So I'm just going to click it. And then this is important. Although when we state the columns, we always put the X column first and the Y column second. The spreadsheet, however, to calculate slope wants the Y's first and the X second. Okay, so we got to keep that straight. It's saying, where's your Y data? So I'm going to highlight just my Y data here. And then a comma, and then it says, what's your X data? Okay, here's my X data. And they have to have the same number of rows, otherwise it says they don't have the same number of rows. How can these be points, right? These are points we're looking at here. Close your parentheses, hit enter. There's that 4.254 we saw before with a few extra decimal places. Intercept is very similar, equals intercept. Y-intercept of line derived via linear regression. Yeah, that's what we want. So click, and then highlight your Y values, comma, oops, not point, sorry, comma, there we go. Highlight your X values. Close the parentheses, hit enter. Okay. If you're an Excel user, Excel does it the exact same way. Correlation equals, starts typing the word correlation. This one they abbreviate as Correl, right? That's short for correlation. Now it's got a funkier name, the Pearson product moment correlation coefficient. That's the one we want. It's the only one there. Okay, so select it. Same thing, it wants the Y data followed by the X data, comma, X data. And we should see the same numbers we saw in stat key. We're just going to get a few more decimal places, right? Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to have the computer graph the line and show the points. So that's not much different than we did before. If this time I just have 2 columns to highlight, and I'm only going to highlight the word temperature chirps and their values. I don't need my extra lines above. And then I'm going to say, insert me a chart. Insert chart, or maybe there's a chart button on your screen. And then the computer is going to guess at a graph. It graphed a line chart. No. We always want a scatter plot. We want the points. So switch if it chose a line chart, or maybe it did something else, right? Google guesses what you want. And here it's off to the right. If I point to it, it says scatter plot. If you don't see that in your options, you can scroll down until you see a scatter plot. bubble charts are cool. I don't know if we're gonna have time for bubble charts today. All right, so let me zoom out just a sec. Now, it looks a little different than the stat key graph because Google is just guessing differently than stat key did at what the Y range should be and what the X range should be. Here, Google went from 0 to 200 for Y and 55 to 85 maybe for X. If I look back at stat key, what did stat key do? Stat key went from 80 to about what, 190 instead. So it chose a slightly different viewing screen, but it's the same set of points. And like we've done before, we can change those scales. Remember how we changed the scale in a histogram? We can change those if we want. So if we wanted to zoom in and get rid of that blank space below, we could do that. So let's do that for fun. So to change anything here, I go to customize, and then I pick what I want to change. So I want to change the vertical axis to be more like what stat key did. And stat key went from 80, I believe it was, right? Let's see, around 80. Maybe it was a little less than that. So what happens if I put in 80 as the minimum for the vertical? That looks all right. Gets rid of the blank white space underneath, and sometimes space on a page is valuable, and we don't want to waste that real estate. So we have the option to redo it, but we definitely don't usually want to have points disappear off the screen. I did it on purpose last class. Andrew, what's up? Your chart is funky. Cool. Let's see what trouble you get into here. Well, that is funky. What the heck? Click on setup for me. So you selected A2 through B9. That looks correct, but it did something wacky. So use column, let's see, row 2 as headers, column A as labels. Let me double check what mine says there. All right, so sometimes Google might not have the same settings for all of us, even if we have the same data, because Google treats everyone different. Let's see, use row 2 as headers. That is correct. So that's saying row 2 was my words, temperature and chirps. And column A, it's using as labels. Yep, those are labeling the bottom axis. That should be okay too. All right, so that looks the same for you and me. Let's go to customize. And then you didn't click anything else here. Okay.
Allow bounds to hide data.
Oh, okay. Allow bounds to hide data. Oh, interesting. I've not clicked that button before. All right, learned something new today. Cool. All right, so next thing we want to take a look at here is titles. Are these good titles? So the top title says chirps versus temperature. If I show that to my mom, is she going to be like, yeah, chirps? Wait, what's chirping? Right. So we should put slightly more descriptive titles. Google just looked at the titles I had in the columns and threw them in there. So I'm going to change those here. So generally what the spreadsheet will do is it'll say Y versus X, whatever Y means and whatever X means, which is okay. So I'm just going to say just chirps per minute. And maybe I should be more specific. How about cricket chirps per minute? If I can spell cricket. Cricket chirps per minute versus temperature. Let's see, can I spell Fahrenheit right today? Fahrenheit. I think that's right. Temperature versus temperature in Fahrenheit. And then on the axis, temperature, I'm just going to put an F there for Fahrenheit. And then the chirps here, I could double click on that and do chirps per minute. That's better. Okay, next, I would like to see the line. When you guys, somebody say yes, please. All right, let's see the line. Cool. All right. So to do that, it's under customize, series. So once you get your titles in there, and again, we always need to know what do the variables mean, and we just abbreviate what they mean to the best of our ability on the graph. And then we want to go to customize series, scroll down the series section to where it says trend line. Click trend line, and then bang, it throws the graph in there. So again, to do that, I went to customize series, click on series, and then scroll down till you see the button that says trend line. It's showing me a linear trend line. Not everything lines up, and it turns out there's a whole bunch of other options. We're not going to use those in this class. Maybe in a second course in statistics, you could use those. Label. Would we like to label the line? Let's take a look at what's there. Use equation. Ooh, let's try it. Click use equation, and it says Chirps 4.25x plus negative 158. So it's throwing the rounded values of the slope and intercept we calculated. All right. So did I actually have to calculate the slope and the intercept in the cells above? It depends on if I needed more decimal places, right? Notice on this screen right here, it only shows me 2 decimal places of the slope and no decimal places for the y-intercept. Okay. Sometimes that's good enough, but if you need more, you have to go calculate them with the formulas. All right. So next big thing is the points will generally not line up in reality because reality is messy, right? We found what we think is the best fitting line. How the heck did that happen? So I'm going to address that next.